Sparta Board of Education regular meeting is called to order at 7:01 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance here in person and virtually. We will be entering into one closed session tonight. It'll be at the end of the meeting later on. Moving on, Neve, can you read the meeting announcement, please?
Sure can. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be advertised by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Sparta Board of Education office, 18 Mohawk Avenue, as designated by the Board of Education for posting of such notice in a public place. Written notice was emailed on January 11, 2022 to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, tapintosparta.net, and to the Township clerk specifying the date, time, and place of this meeting.
Thanks, Neve. Roll call, please, Joanne.
Ms. Bragg? Mr. McKernan?
Here.
Ms. Sealander?
Here.
Ms. Collier?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Dr. Serrano? Ms. Grana?
Here.
Mr. Morris? Mr. Pleshy?
Here. Can everybody please rise and join us for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Moving on to section 1.5, acceptance of board members' resignation. Resolved that the Board of Education accepts the resignation of Kimberly Bragg from the Sparta Board of Education effective 9/12 of 2022. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Wendy, thank you. Second.
Second.
Lauren, thank you. Discussion?
I'd just like to take a moment just to thank Ms. Bragg for her 6.5 years of exemplary service to the district and to the board and to our students. We watched her be board president through a pandemic. I can't imagine that being easy. I'm sure the 6.5 years felt much longer. And something that I think we could probably all attest to at this table is how welcoming she was when we came upon the board to share from her training and her experience, and always making herself available to sharing that knowledge. So I'm very appreciative, and she will be missed, and I wish her well in her health.
Agreed, thank you. Roll call, please, Joanne.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Grano? Yes. Mr. Pleshy?
Yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to section 2, district recognition. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Pleshy. So every year we go out of our way to recognize the retirees from the previous school year. So last year, at the end of the 21-22 school year, we decided to push off the recognition until September, because the previous year we did it in June and everybody was away on vacation. So we tried our luck with September to recognize our retirees. From the 21-22 school year, the 21-22 school year was the last year for 12 of our district members. So we had 12 retirees, 3 of which are joining us tonight that I would like to recognize. The first one is Cheryl Deckmar, who had 19 years of service in the district as an IT technician. Next, we have Susan Graham, who was a teacher in our district. Her service was 26 years. Susan Graham. And last and certainly not least, we have Mrs. Carolyn Lynch, who served as a cafeteria worker in our district for 38 years. On behalf of the administration and on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank and congratulate all of our 12 retirees. Those retirees that ended their career last school year certainly saw unprecedented times throughout their final years, but always a challenge. Education is always a challenge. So throughout your service, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Beck. Thank you to the retirees for all of your dedication and hard work over the years to our district. We truly appreciate it. Moving on to Section 5, presentations. We do have 2 presentations tonight, so I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Beck. Get your exercise.
Should have sat down. I guess I shouldn't have sat down. So tonight we'll have 2 presentations. We'll have the NJQSAC presentation, which I'll be doing first, and then Mr. Benson will be doing our HIB presentation. So NJQSAC. What is NJQSAC? So NJQSAC is the monitoring system that our district has to go through, that every district in the state has to go through every 3 years, and they're on a staggered schedule. So NJQSAC stands for the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, NJQSAC for short. By the way, I will post this presentation on our website, and from the presentation you can see that that first line is hyperlinked. It'll take you right to the NJQSAC website, and it'll give you all the information you need to know about NJQSAC. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what NJQSAC is. So NJQSAC is the Department of Education's monitoring and district self-evaluation system for public school districts. It's a single comprehensive accountability system that consolidates and incorporates the monitoring requirements of applicable state laws and programs and complements federally required improvements. Basically what it is an audit for different areas in education to make sure that we are in compliance with state statute. In those, and it's broken down into 5 areas. There are 5 areas in which we're monitored. Those 5 areas are instruction and program, fiscal, governance, operations, and personnel. Each of those areas has many, many indicators within it that we have to meet the requirements in order to earn scores. The process for NJQSAC, again, it's every 3 years for every district. So the last time that we were monitored was the 18-19 school year. And the process last year looked like this. In the fall of 2021, we formed a QSAC committee. The state requirement for who sits on the QSAC committee is listed there. The chief school administrator, which is myself, of course, a district administrator, a teacher, at least one teacher, the school business administrator, a curriculum instruction representative, a local collective bargaining representative, and a Board of Education member. Those are the minimum requirements, and we had additional members that we added to that committee as well that we thought could contribute and assist us. In fall, we formed the committee, and we go through the district performance review. The district performance review is all of the indicators that you have to meet for all of those components that I talked about before. So we go through as a committee, and we look at each of those components, and we say how we met those requirements. If we met those requirements, we have to back it up with evidence. And what we do is we create this DPR document, we hyperlink the evidence. We had the board approve that district performance review. We did that last fall. And then in the spring, the Department of Education came in, the County Department of Education, which is an arm of the State Department of Education, came in to monitor us. We submitted our DPR scores to them in the fall. They came in the spring and said, okay, thank you, now actually show them to us. Show us everything you have. And that's a full day process where they have members come in and they break off. They have somebody go with a representative of our district, and they go talk about personnel. And they go with somebody else and they go talk about fiscal. And they comb through it. That was done in May of 2022. Typically, you get a pretty quick turnaround once you're monitored, but this past year, because of COVID, they pushed off a lot of monitoring, so they got backed up, and they gave us extensions. They gave everybody extensions. So they got backed up in the Department of Education office as far as getting the final scores to us. So the final scores were not actually handed to us until last Monday. And by state requirement, once you receive the scores from your QSAC monitoring, you are required to present your scores at the next Board of Education meeting, which is what we're doing tonight. So what were those scores? You can see I have highlighted there the results from the 2022 NJQSAC monitoring. You can see the DPR area down the left side, and you can see what we earned this year, or based on last year. That was an 88% in instruction and program, a 96% in fiscal management, 100% in governance, 89% in operations, and a 97% in personnel. What does all of that mean? It means by the New Jersey Department of Education standards that we are a high-performing district. And when you compare it to our QSAC scores of the last time we were monitored, we did better, equal or better in most areas. We went down 3% in personnel, but we still got an excellent score in personnel. The letter from the Department of Education congratulated us on our score. I'm pleased to inform you that the district has satisfied at least 80% of the weighted indicators in each of the 5 areas of the NJQSAC and is designated as high performing. The Commissioner will recommend to the State Board of Education that the district will be certified as providing a thorough and efficient system of education for a period of 3 years or until the next QSAC review. Congratulations on this accomplishment. That was the copied and pasted from the letter that we received from the Department of Education, and I will also I'll post this presentation on the website, and I'll also post the letter from the Department of Education on the website as well. What do we do from here? We're on a good path, so we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, if not better, as far as QSAC goes. So the next QSAC monitoring will be scheduled for the 24-25 school year, barring anything unforeseen. And so that's 3 years from now. And what we'll do in the meantime is we'll continue to follow board policies and remain up to date with legislation and statute, because that is what QSAC will be based on. So as long as we keep updating our policies, which we're great with doing as a Board of Ed, as soon as statutes are updated, we get our policies updated. So as long as we stay on that path and we continue to adhere to our policies and to our protocols, we'll be in good shape, and that's how we're going to do well in our QSAC monitoring next time as well. Any questions from the Board of Ed?
One question.
Yeah.
I know that due to some of the testing, right? We had some dialogue about that. Could you explain about how we weren't able to use new test scores?
Yeah.
Please.
Good point, Ms. Collier. Yeah. So if you go into instruction and program, you'll see that we got an 88%, which by the state standards is very good. We're still high performing. The reason we lost 12%, actually, if you look through our actual report on how we were scored, we got 100% on our curriculum. Our curriculum was great, but the other component of the instruction and program is they use test scores. They use student achievement. The student achievement that they used in this QSAC monitoring and last year's QSAC monitoring, those test scores were from pre-pandemic standardized tests, and they haven't changed. They haven't allowed us, well, the standardized tests weren't given every year. They haven't allowed us to update how we've done. So they keep going back to the 18-19 test scores. The 18-19 test scores are still used for the 21-22 monitoring. So that's where we lost 12%. We had no control over that. But what we had 100% control over was updating our curricula, and the curricula itself was 100%, and we lost points on the student achievement. Thank you for pointing that out, Ms. Collier. All right. Well, thank you. And I will turn it over to Mr. Benson for the HIB presentation.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Benson. I am the Executive Director of Personnel and Pupil Services for the Sparta School District. And part of my role as the Director of Pupil Services is to serve as the Anti-Bullying Specialist Coordinator for the district. And tonight, I would like to present the Board of Education with our 2021-2022 HIB Assessment Raw Scores, which is required by the Anti-Bullying Act, Rights Act. Before presenting the raw data, I will explain the process and requirements as required by the New Jersey Department of Education. The HIB assessment is a self-assessment that each school's anti-bullying specialist must complete yearly. This assessment, which I will present in a later slide, is numeric scores that are placed in each category ranging from HIB initiatives to HIB reporting. Once each section has been provided with the numeric score, a total school grade is then calculated, with the maximum score being 78. During our October board meeting, we will request approval of our raw scores, which will then be officially submitted to the New Jersey Department of Education, which will then give us our official report card score. Once this official report has been produced, it will be provided to the board and placed on our district website as required by the New Jersey Department of Education. When looking at the self-assessment categories, you will notice categories that are designed to push our district to develop plans and initiatives that strengthen school climate culture, prevent and intervene, are informative, allow for HIB pattern identification, provides areas of strength and improvement. Now to the data. As you can see, overall as a district, we achieved the highest scores possible in majority of the categories. However, when looking at this data, there are two things I immediately recognize as areas that will help us continue to improve our efforts of HIB prevention. One area being our HIB program approaches and initiatives. Two, being our alignment of utilizing best practices across all of our buildings. Now that you've seen the data, which presents areas of strength and areas of improvement, I will speak to our areas of focus to help continue to improve our district climate and culture. As an anti-bullying specialist team, we will continue to meet monthly while putting extra emphasis on identifying patterns, developing and evaluating programs and initiatives that are focused on addressing the patterns of behaviors that are found. During these monthly meetings, we will also align our efforts to ensure best practices are being utilized across our district. Fortunately, this year we are back to a level of norm that allows us to bring back our scheduled assemblies, many of which have already been scheduled, focusing on bullying education and character development such as respect, courtesy, and kindness. Another essential piece to establishing climate and culture that is conducive to student success is ensuring we continue to train our staff on the most up-to-date HIB laws and revisions. For the second consecutive year, our building anti-bullying specialists have attended their annual HIB training, which also focused on updates to the law. Additionally, many of our district administrators and building coordinators will be attending the New Jersey HIB law revisions training presented by the Center for Prevention and Counseling on October 4th. And last but not least, we will continue our school culture and climate initiative through St. Elizabeth, as we spoke to last year. Thank you.
Good, thank you both. Moving on to Section 6, our student representatives report. first one for the year.
Yes, and we have Jack Hill and Remy Coleman joining us tonight.
Hello, I hope you all are having a great evening. I'm just going to give you a little rundown of what the Executive Council is up to. So first off, we're going to have Spirit Week on the week of 10/17 to 10/21. This is going to be the week of the homecoming dance as well as the homecoming football game. The homecoming football game will have a student council recognition about an hour to 30 minutes before the game, recognizing all of the student council officers. There will also be a pep rally on the day of school. We'll follow an activity schedule and we'll raise a little rally for the game. So our student council officers, Courtney and Shannon, recently had a guided tour with the Sparta High School class of 1971 alumni last week, and it was celebrating their 50th high school reunion. And then lastly, freshman elections are wrapping up, and new officers will later be announced on Friday.
Then recently the Executive Council has been meeting with the administration at the school to just have a direct connection between the administration and the students. Chad Wood, our Executive President, has been nominated for NJ Student Senate, where he's moving forward with the application process, and he may hopefully represent Sparta and New Jersey in Washington. And then we are planning a charity concert for March, which the paperwork is going through right now. And that's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, guys. Moving on to section 7, approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Neve, thank you. Second? Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please. Joey?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
That was a yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Mr. Pelleggi?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to section 8, superintendent's report. Dr. Beck?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to the student council representatives. Sticking with the theme of student representation and student collaboration with administration and with the board, the first thing I would like to do is welcome our first ever, actually, Board of Education student representatives, official Board of Education student representatives. Back at the end of last school year, there was new legislation that was passed that required every school district that has a high school to have at least one student representative be a formal, non-voting member of the Board of Education. And that student representative would be selected or elected by his or her peers and in a process deemed appropriate by the superintendent. So they had elections right when school started this year. They took nominations, then they had an election. And it says we need to have at least one. What we did was we decided to select two, and one would sit at the table at a time. So we will have one, and they will alternate. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that process will look like, but we have two very well qualified candidates. So sitting with us this evening is Madeline Mulberry. Madeline is the 11th grade Board of Education student representative. She plays on the Sparta soccer team and runs winter track. She works at a daycare in Sparta. She plans to be involved this year in Key Club and the Student Advisory Board Club, which I will talk about in a minute. And she is looking forward to working alongside the Board of Education this year. So thank you and welcome, Madeline.
I'd just like to say that I am so honored to be here and be the voice for the students this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you. And we also look forward to working with Mr. Chad Wood, who is out in our audience tonight. Chad is a senior at Sparta High School. He's a student council class president for 3 consecutive years, and now the executive president. Chad recently became an Eagle Scout in August and has served as the senior patrol leader. He's on the Sparta bowling team. He serves on DECA. He's on GSA. We Are the Dream. He's also a member of Key Club, in his second consecutive term serving as Key Club Lieutenant Governor of Division 21. He's a member of Diversity Council, and he has maintained a job as a busser at El Porto for about 1.5 years. So Chad and Maddie, thank you, and welcome to the Board of Education. Mrs. Rossi and I met with both of these esteemed students on Tuesday afternoon to welcome them to the board and to discuss the formation and inevitable evolution of this position. We discussed the role of the Board of Education, administration, and how we can utilize the representative position to drive student voice. We will meet with Chad and Madeline every month to discuss the board agenda, and we'll hope to have them offer a representative report as part of the board agenda beginning in the next month or two. We discussed how there was no clear guidance on what this position looks like, so we are going to allow it to evolve, and we're going to get more involved as it progresses. And speaking of student involvement and evolvement, I want to follow up on the Student Advisory Board. So along the same lines of student voice and representation, I wanted to provide an update on the creation of a Student Advisory Board that was requested during last month's public comment. The day after the August board meeting, I followed up with Sasha Nelson and Paige Samowski via email. I looped in Mr. Pileshi and Ms. Grano into that conversation, into the email conversation. I complimented Sasha and Paige for the manner in which they delivered their message and for coming up with the great idea of student board collaboration. The board leadership concurred. Last week, Ms. Rossi and I met with Sasha and Paige. Paige is currently in college on the West Coast, so she attended remotely. And as well as their potential advisors for this club. We met with them as well to go over the vision for this student group and to establish a possible path forward. We discussed the many possibilities and opportunities that could come with this partnership, as well as how this group could work very closely with our official student board representatives. Our goal is to continue to work on this path forward with the students and with the board in hopes of having this come to fruition in the very near future. I'm confident I speak for the admin team and for the board when I say that we have and will continue to look for ways to offer and listen to student voices in our district. Our students are the reason we are all here, and they deserve to have their voices heard. More student recognition. I wanted to recognize the marching band, the Marching Spartans. They competed at the Jefferson Township band competition recently. When the band came off the field, this is Mr. Lopez's email to the administration. When the band came off the field, we all agreed it was their best performance to date. The judges agreed as well, as we won first place in Group 2A with a score of 80.72, and they won all captions, best music, visual, and general effect. We were excited to see that we also received the highest score out of all bands at the show, so a phenomenal start for the Marching Spartans. I want to recap the opening days of school. I'm proud to say the opening of our schools this year was very successful. Aside from the inevitable and typical few wrinkles that occur each year as schools open, we're off to a fantastic start. And all of our buildings are vibing with great positivity. As an admin team, we've made it one of our goals to get into the buildings and into the classrooms a lot more this year. Getting into the classrooms and seeing our teachers and students operate without the health and safety constraints they've had to endure over the past few years has been nothing short of amazing. On behalf of the entire admin team, I thank the community and the Board of Education for their support throughout the school year. Moving on to an update regarding the annual random air quality tests. As promised, the annual random air quality test took place this summer, and after a short delay due to a staffing shortage within our environmental firm, I'm happy to report that all of the random air quality tests conducted in each of our 5 buildings have been returned with normal results. An update on the threat assessment team that I spoke to last month and how we're getting the threat assessment team off the ground. You will see that the teacher additions to the threat assessment team are on this evening's agenda. But I wanted to offer congratulations to Dr. Jane Esposito and Ms. Sue Lorenz for completing their training with the Department of Homeland Security. Dr. Esposito and Ms. Lorenz are now master trainers in the field of behavior threat assessment. Last month in my superintendent report, I stated that Sparta School District is far ahead of the curve regarding the state mandate that goes into effect next year. Dr. Esposito and Ms. Lorenz can and will now train our admin team and staff on threat assessment and reporting, which focuses on raising awareness about targeted violence and outlining the behavioral threat assessment model. So congratulations and thank you to Dr. Esposito and Ms. Lorenz, and we will keep blazing the trail and be on the cutting edge of this threat assessment team in our district. Lastly, I wanted to offer an update on one component of our strategic plan, which is the communication audit and plan. I wanted to provide, we're moving on to the next phase of the process, which will be to send surveys to district employees, parents, and community members. Those surveys will be on communication preferences. You can expect to receive those surveys early next month. So in the month of October, we're going to start sending surveys out. When the surveys are returned, we will start to analyze that data. In the meantime, we are going through a communications audit for what we currently use and how much we use it. We're going to combine all of that to produce our communications plan. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Rossi for a curriculum instruction report.
Good evening. I don't have a long report tonight, but one thing I want to share is that our district has received, as many others across the state, our NJSLA and NJGPA data from our spring assessments. We will be sharing that at the next Board of Ed meeting. So far, as we've begun to unpack it, we are definitely seeing areas of need, but real positive trends that we will surely capitalize on and that we're excited to unpack further. Student reports, individual student reports will be sent home in the next few days, so all schools will be sending those out between tomorrow and Monday. And so you'll be receiving a letter from me through email just explaining how you can interpret those scores, those reports that you receive, and if you have any additional information, you can reach out. So that is all happening in the next few days. We will continue to unpack data and look at areas of strength and also areas of support that our students need. We are really fortunate to be partnering with high-quality professionals across the state. One of them being Dr. Tracy Severance, who's a leader in the field for highly effective data analysis that not only helps us understand the needs of our students, but of our programs. I do want to reiterate how exciting it's been to interact with our student groups. There's so much in the horizon to look forward to, and they have a lot of insight to share, and we really have enjoyed already our interactions in planning what forward movement could look like. I've attended several back-to-school nights this year so far, and they've been very positive. We are deeply moving forward with our professional development experiences. We had a great kickoff upon our return back to school. We had a speaker who talked about returning back to the future and what that looks like with a refocus on teaching and learning, as some of the constraints that we've been dealing with over the last few years due to COVID have started to lessen. We are looking forward to a professional development day actually this Friday, tomorrow, which will give our teachers some support in aligning our intervention supports and streamlining how teachers request assistance for students. We're also looking at our October 10th Professional Development Day, which we plan to focus on an ed camp style approach, which really focuses on using our teachers' knowledge and expertise to be leaders within the district. And we did something like that last year, which was very successful. And I think lastly, I just want to add to the fact that it has been a positive start to the school year, and we are really focused on continuing to support and empower a positive morale that we know will ultimately allow us to meet district expectations and support student achievement across the board. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to section 11, the HIB report approval. Can I have a motion, please? Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Lauren, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pleshy?
Yes. Moving on to section 13, delegate liaison reports. Do we have any updates this month?
Just want to thank the community members who came out to the accessible icon project. It was a really great day. It was a sunny day. Mrs. Rossi was there, and the paint was drying very quickly. So the project moved very quickly, but it was a great mix of families from across the district who came out, friends of the Diversity Council, and the new icons look great. And where you see imperfection, it's because our students from tots on up were involved, and the fresh paint we think looks really great. And I want to thank Mr. Kircher for organizing the event, and our Askin and Hooker, who is our legal community team that helped make that event possible. We wish Mr. Kircher well in his next opportunity as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on to public comment number 1, which are for action items only. Public comments are invited on matters pertaining only to action items at this time. Please state the action item number, as well as your name, municipality, and group affiliation if appropriate for the record. Each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. There will be a countdown timer, and you will be notified when there is 1 minute remaining, and then again when the time is up at the end of 3 minutes. Speakers may not cede their time to others. This portion of the meeting is meant to hear public comment, not to have a dialogue between the board and the person speaking. The board asks that the members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking and not disrupt the meeting, or you may be asked to leave. All statements should be directed to me as the presiding officer. The board or administration may respond to any questions or comments at the conclusion of the public participation.
Hi, Leanne Pitzer, 45 Hunters Lane, Sparta.
Hi,
I'm
Ms. Pitzer.
speaking on action item 8.1, Superintendent's Monthly Report. I basically have some questions regarding the air quality tests and some things going on within the schools that I think would generally affect the air quality. I'm aware that the air conditioners for the lower level of Sparta Middle School have not been working properly for at least a few years now. The public experienced that briefly during the June 7th Board of Ed meeting. The staff has endured a state of very hot and humid rooms and poor working conditions for years. This doesn't only go to Sparta Middle School, this goes to Alpine School, Helen Morgan School, and Mohawk Avenue School as well. What is being done to replace the AC units at all of these locations to improve the air quality for those staff and students whose rooms are in the lower levels or in the elementary schools, and also for the students who utilize any of those rooms at any time? At one point, Dr. Beck had mentioned that there was going to be some ultraviolet lights that were going to be installed that were supposed to kill germs or something along that line. What's the update on that? Have they been installed? Will they be installed in all of the schools or only some schools? Also, what kind of cleaning is being done now that there is an apparent COVID spike picking up in the area? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pitzer.
She has her questions written down.
You can grab
Read them off.
Board Secretary, if you wouldn't mind. Vanessa, could you just grab it from her? Thanks.
I just have a lot of questions, so I wrote them down for you so that you don't have to take notes.
Thank you.
I'm Dana Galino, 26 Valley View Trail, and I'm talking on the 8.1, the superintendent's report regarding the strategic plan. I just have a few questions. Number one, according to an Oprah search, former BA Ron Smith did not create a scope of work for the 21-22 plan. Can you please explain why not and how he was able to price out the project without a scope? Number two, why didn't Ron Smith request competitive bids for the plan? Did anyone on the board ask for more than one proposal? If not, please explain. Number three, please describe the relationship between Ron Smith and Dr. Osnato, who is the O in MJO Enterprises. Did anyone on the board raise concerns that a single $35,000 proposal from a friend of our former BA was the only proposal provided to the board? Number four, why was a vendor that had never completed a district strategic plan before hired by Sparta? Did any board members ask MJO for sample strategic plans or references? Number five, who signed the MJO Enterprises proposal and contract? Please provide a copy of both. Number six, why did the board approve a 3-year plan from MJO when only the cost for year 1 was listed in the proposal? Without knowing the costs of years 2 and 3, how did the board approve a motion to accept a 3-year proposal? Did anyone on the board ask why they were agreeing to a 3-year project while only knowing the cost for year 1? Number 7, I've marked up MJO's strategic plan overview that was released to the public. I have noted typos, fragmented sentences, insufficiently explained data, and missing information. Are you willing to send this markup back to MJO and request they revise and reissue the plan? Number 8, if you're not willing to send back the plan, or if MJO refuses to make the necessary changes, are you prepared to request a refund for the $12,000 taxpayer dollars you spent on this inadequate plan? Number 9, have you severed the contract with MJO Enterprises for future work? If so, when and where was this decision made? Please provide the minutes. If not, are you planning to continue our contract with MJO Enterprises? And number 10, how exactly will Kennedy Green be providing training and leadership coaching for $19,800? What is their scope of work and who is determining if they meet their milestones? Will they have any role in implementing the MJO strategic plan? And if so, please provide details on how. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galino. Ms. Galino, that was a lot of questions, so we may not, which is fine.
You can't answer them all right now?
If that's all right, we will get back to you on those, though, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Can I have a motion to close public comment number 1, please? Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to section 15. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
No problem. I just wanted to respond to Ms. Pitzer's inquiries. First, the lower level air conditioning at SMS. It's my understanding that has been on and off working for the past 5 years. I'm happy to report it is up and running. It's been up and running at least this week, maybe as far back as last week, but it's up and running in the lower level of the middle school. As far as air conditioning in all buildings, the air conditioning in all buildings that is already installed, as far as I know, everything is working. As far as adding additional air conditioning in other buildings, we were talking with our architect and still talking with our architect about the capacity of the electrical grid, specifically in Helen Morgan and in Alpine School. And we're not sure that they could handle an upgrade of a central air conditioning system in any of those buildings, but we're still talking about that with them. And as far as putting central coded air conditioning in those buildings, we're not sure if we could do that. An update on the UV lights. All the UV lights that I spoke about last year are installed in all the buildings. And as far as additional cleaning goes, I actually talked about this today with our Director of Operations and with our Director of Buildings and Grounds, and we are doing regular cleaning every night. What the the latest guidance has said was that they discourage doing the heavy, spraying, all that extra spraying and leaving it like we were doing in the past. That's actually discouraged now because they could be spraying and then they don't go back and wipe and then it's sitting there on the desk for the next morning. So we don't do any of that spraying anymore. We just do the typical cleaning, and they're actually saying that the typical cleaning is what is best because there's no, the research shows now that the virus is not being spread on surfaces. If we have known pockets of COVID, or even worse, like a stomach virus, we would go in and attack those with some targeted cleaning.
Thank you. Moving on to section 15, personnel and policy. We're looking to move numbers 15.1 through 15.25. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Lauren, thank you. Second?
Second?
Neve, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Joanne.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci?
Yes. Moving on to section 16, the curriculum. Looking to move 16.1 through 16.9. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion?
Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Joanne.
Ms. Collier?
Yes, but abstain to myself on item 16.2.
Ms. Grano?
Yes, except abstaining to myself as well on 16.2.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes, abstaining to myself on 16.2.
Ms. Miller?
Yes to everyone.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes, but I am also abstaining to myself on 16.2.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci?
Yes, abstaining from myself on 16.2. Okay, moving on to section 17, finance. We're looking to move 17.1 through 17.10A, which 17.10A was an addendum. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion?
Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Patrick, thank you. Discussion?
I just wanted to make a note on 17.6, the donation. Sure, probably everyone agrees, but just want to thank the Alpine PTO for their very generous donation of the sound system for the room. That was over $31,000. So I'm sure many people at the Tricky Tray played a big part of that. So we're very thankful for that.
I was going to say, I second that and extend that the thank you to the community because a large portion of that comes from the Tricky Tray at Alpine.
Very
Absolutely.
And I did have one additional question to you, Dr. Beck, regarding 17.9 Insight Health. Could you just provide a little more information about the service and how it's being provided at no cost to the district and how we'll utilize it?
Yeah, that's a behavioral health program that actually Ms. Rossi has been working with their representatives.
Sure. Yeah, we're looking to pilot it. It actually is no cost to the district, but it helps us gain access to professionals to do mental health, what's the name? Evaluations, thank you. And also provide counseling as needed if families are finding difficulty securing those services, which is what we were finding has happened over the past few years with the increase of need. It's a company that works with specifically with school districts in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and so they're growing rapidly in their partnerships to try to expand access to these services for school districts and families.
So is this something that like a student or a family would have to be recommended, or is this something that is available to the entire district?
Yeah, so we're going to start small because it's not something we've had access to before, but I know other districts who have, and they have a variety of different services, some that are for the district, so if we're looking for those evaluations, that we have greater span in selection so that we can have it done more immediately and families don't have to wait for that. And so really what we're just approving is an MOA to work with them to develop those next steps to see what things we can offer and what that process would look like. But it would include, and it could include, both supports to the schools and the families if that was their choice. So of course, following all, rules and laws around consent and HIPAA, of course.
I'm sorry, Tara, just one question. Are these services provided to the students on-site in the schools during the day?
It can be, yeah. That's some of the flexibility that they offer. Again, that would be a choice and a selection, but it expands and also kind of streamlines these services so that it's not something that you have to be searching for after school hours. It could happen during the day.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Can I have a roll call, please, Joanne?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano? Yes. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pelleggi?
Yes. Moving on to section 18, operations. We're looking to move 18.1 through 18.3. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Joanne?
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Mr. Pelleggi?
Yes. Moving on to section 19, do we have any old business? Any new business?
I wanted to bring up an item, Mr. Pelleggi, on, I know back last September, there was a high volume of people that were attending the board meetings, and it was suggested that we hold comment to reply to each person at the end of the full session, right, in order to move things along. And now that we've returned to more of a, I guess, manageable volume is the right way to say it, I was wondering if the board might consider going back to the old model of being able to respond to each question after it's answered, so that
During public
during
comments?
public comments, so that it gives a little more continuity if the questions are separate, if that makes sense. Basically, because at that time, we had a number of questions regarding similar subjects, and we were needing to retain comment. So I was wondering if we could address each question to make sure that everyone's questions are answered if they can at the time.
Yeah, let's, we can add that to policy committee discussion. We'll add that for next month's committee meetings. Yeah, thank you. Moving on to public comment number 2. The board uses the second public comment period to invite comments on all matters pertaining to the school district. Please state your name, municipality, and group affiliation if appropriate for the record. Each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. There will be a countdown timer, and you will be notified when there is 1 minute remaining, and then again when the time is up at the end of 3 minutes. Speakers may not cede their time to others. This portion of the meeting is meant to hear public comment, not to have a dialogue between the board and the person speaking. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking and not disrupt the meeting, or you may be asked to leave. All statements should be directed to me as the presiding officer. The board or administration may respond to any questions or comments after the conclusion of the public participation.
Hello, Caitlin Gagnon,
Ms.
Summit
Gagnon.
Road, Sparta. Hi, no group affiliation, thankfully. To Ms. Collier's point, I actually think that's wonderful. It's something that was brought up on a website that shall remain nameless. We took it one step further and even said perhaps you can accommodate the time limit based on the number of attendees. That might also be another parameter that makes your lives a little bit easier. So just something to consider, but I wholeheartedly agree. So I have 3 points to make tonight, are questions. They obviously don't have to be answered right away, in order of newest to oldest. So number 1, the marching band, or actually I should say first, Dr. Beck and Ms. Rossi, I commend you and I thank you for involving our students. They are the future. I was speaking with a colleague, and we agreed that attending a board meeting as a junior or a senior was probably the last thing I ever thought of doing in high school. But that being said, we appreciate the representatives, we appreciate the advisory board, and we commend Sasha and Paige for bringing that to light last meeting. Number one, the marching band. Dr. Beck, you recognize how esteemed they are. For a long time they have been, but it appears that the trailer situation still has not been resolved. So I'm just curious if we have an update on that. I understand that at least 1 to 2 weeks ago, there was a marching band event where unfortunately, not only was there not a trailer, but they had to rent box trucks or trucks of some sort to move their equipment, and there was not a lift available. So not only was our marching band kind of, I hate to use the word ridiculed, but perhaps set up for an interesting situation, I also think that paying for temporary fixes to that will cost our district a lot more in the long run. So I'm just curious if we have an update on that. Number two, the feasibility study. Last month you had mentioned this, and you had also mentioned that the feasibility study results yielded that it does make more fiscal sense for us to go ahead and rebuild new buildings. I'm curious if we can find out a little bit more about that. Is there a report that we can see as of right now on the website today? I didn't notice one. Perhaps there's a report that can be made available to the public, the results of that study, and just kind of what we can expect for the next steps going forward. The very, very last and oldest business, Ms. Rossi, I'm hoping to see if you perhaps have an update on the new phys ed and health curriculum. I understand we were awaiting a few results at the last meeting still, very minimal, but how do those ratios look now? Did those final results or any last minute changes really sway the ratio to kind of, far away from that 80% that we were told? Just kind of curious so we can understand and maybe see what the community represents. I thank you guys, and glad that I had the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gagnon.
Hello, Jennifer Grana, 22 Longview Road.
Hi, Ms. Grana.
Hi. I have 2 questions for Mr. Paleschi and 1 for Ms. Rossi, if I have time. The reason why I came the first time, and then I have 2 additional questions, is I know over the past, not only just the past couple months, but the past couple years, there have been at least a few requests for Mr. Morris to be removed as the personnel chair, and I'm here to formally request that also in person because I have a follow-up question that may help clarify why you continue to keep him there. Mr. Zinnemer can probably give you a lot more guidance on it, but as far as I know, as the board president, I know it's completely up to you and your discretion as to who's on which committee. And based on the past year, 2 years, even 3 years, we've lost an amazing administrator that started several diversity initiatives and was an amazing HIB coordinator, and since diversity initiatives have been marginalized, for lack of a better word, and also HIBs have been mishandled, misreported, and mismanaged. We've lost a beloved ELA teacher, Ms. Brennan, that where clubs went into a spiral and her classroom became a revolving door. Now, most recently, Mr. Kircher has decided to resign, and the future of the Diversity Council is up in the air. And he is a state-recognized educator that now is no longer going to be with us. That's only a few examples because, in my opinion, I feel that Mr. Morris's reach goes beyond even just certificated staff to even security guards. So I guess my question for you is, even though obviously in a couple months there's potentially going to be a reorganization, that's a lot of time and a lot more damage has been done with less time. It's only a couple of months, but I just feel that given all of the evidence, I really don't understand why it's simply he isn't just moved. Only because, as far as I know, it's really just an email. It doesn't have to be announced. It doesn't have to be public. It's really just a matter of saying, next week go to this meeting, and then the next week this person's going to go to personnel. Like, to me, it just seems like a pretty simple move considering all of the past year. I don't know if I have time. It's a different topic. But I also wondered if Ms. Rossi could provide an update on the Words Matter initiative, if that's still ongoing, now that Mr. Kircher is departing. And then also the final thing was Ms. Collier made an amazing point about public comment. I tend to really agree, but I don't understand why the discussion can't be had in public. I don't know why that has to go to a Personnel and Policy Committee. I feel like Mr. Zittimer can correct me if I'm wrong, that anything can be really decided at the table with a motion and a discussion. So I encourage you to have that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grana. Go ahead. You can ask.
Is it long? The end of the first part was if you could just explain what reasoning you would give to keep Mr. Morris as the personnel chair. Rather than saying, people requesting him to be removed, maybe it would be better for you, Mr. Pelesci, to explain what traits you think he possesses, why he should stay in that role, if that helps, because maybe that's something that we're not understanding or seeing. That was my original question.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Walter Knapp, Stanhope Road in Sparta. I had a quick question regarding the open seat now that Ms. Bragg has retired, and what the board is planning on doing with that open seat. Or are they going to fill it before the election, or what's going to take place there? And then I would also like to thank Ms. Bragg for all the hard work that she's done for this community and this Board of Education. She did a fantastic job. She's a very dedicated individual, and I wish her all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Okay, Mr. Knapp, to answer your question about the seat, yes, the seat will be filled in accordance with our policy. We have 65 days from the date of resignation to do so. We will be sending a communication out to the community. We do have to discuss a couple issues with our legal team, with Mr. Zittimer, but we will be getting a communication out to the community here very soon. Okay. In regards to the committees, you know, yeah, close it first. Yep. Does anybody else for public comment? Okay, we'll close it. Can I have a motion to close public comment, please?
Motion.
Wendy, thank you. Second.
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay. In regards to the committees, yes, Ms. Garner, you are correct. There's a reorganization meeting every January, and at that point, the committees and delegate liaisons will be reassigned. We have a lot of new board members. We've had resignations, plenty of resignations over the last year, last probably 2 years now, and moving people around, in my mind, to move them around again in a couple months, to me, it just doesn't make sense at this point. We're trying to build a board that has experience, and the only way you're going to get experience is if you are on a committee for an extended period of time. It helps you learn the intricacies of a board. It's not easy being a board member. There's an enormous learning curve. For me, it's different than anything I've ever done. At this point, we're not gonna rejigger the committees. That will be done in a couple months. So, but I thank you for your comments. We do appreciate everybody's comments. So thank you. Go ahead.
I'll just follow up with Ms. Gagnon's inquiry. The first is the marching band trailer. As I mentioned last month, the marching band trailer, the issue that was presented to me last month was the first that I've heard of that. So in the meantime, I reached out to high school administration. What exactly would be the need for a trailer, how was it requested, and so on. What I learned was a marching band trailer for us to purchase would cost somewhere in the range of about $30,000. That $30,000 was not budgeted for this school year. I asked Mr. Stoner how much, what would be the need for that? How much would we use a trailer? He said, we do not, the marching band does not travel to away football games to perform, and that they do the competitions. And the amount of competitions is a few a year, and we do budget, as you mentioned, trucks. We do budget trucks for those. The issue with the lift, I don't know what happened there. Yeah. But we do budget for trucks to make sure that we have what we need. I believe it was discussed within high school administration, just the feasibility of it for how much it's used was not necessarily a good spending of our money for this current school year, but we're going to continue to talk about it. And then regarding the feasibility study, yeah, that is complete. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and look at it and make sure there's nothing there, that they didn't comment on anything that would affect safety, security, infrastructure, that sort of thing that cannot be public. And once I confirm, probably through Mr. Zittimer, if it could be public, I have no problem putting it on the website.
Dr. Beck, I just have a question about the marching band trailer. So you said you went through like your investigation with the admin. Had they requested a trailer and it was turned down, or what's?
The trailer request had never made it to central office.
Never made it to central office?
I have a question as well about the marching band. I know you said that they don't go to away games. Are they not allowed to go to away games, or is it just a matter that they're not able to get to the away games? Like if they had the thing?
They don't typically perform at away games. It's usually the home
They're not even like in the
bands.
stands doing stuff? Or
From my
sidelines?
experience, which
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
a marching band parent or anything like that.
It's my understanding some schools do, some schools don't. And
Yeah,
Sparta
last
does
year
not.
they went to Jefferson and they did perform at Jefferson because they had a competition coming up shortly after, I believe. I don't think it's typical. I don't think it's that they can't. I'm sure if they had a trailer, I don't know. But back to the central office thing. So where would that request have gone first? Would that have gone to the athletic department? Like, how does that work? Because from last month when they were sitting here, it sounded like they did ask about it, and you're saying from when they asked about it to central office, there's something that like.
Yeah, last month when I heard about it was the first time that I heard about it. So, listen, the athletics and activities has a certain set budget, and there was not
Right.
going to be any increase in that budget. From what I understood, they just didn't see it to be feasible to add a $30,000 item to that budget at the time.
Yeah, I was just curious where it seemed like there was some sort of miscommunication along the way from them to here. So I was just trying to get some clarity on that.
Sorry, I just have a follow-up. I didn't realize you weren't done, Wendy, sorry if I cut you off. Is there a way to like ask the band director or the students, like if they're interested in going to away games? Like would that justify more investing in a trailer for them?
Yeah,
I mean, like to Wendy's point, I don't, like some schools do it, some don't.
I don't know how we arrived at this point with the protocol for that. I'll
Right.
reach out. I'll start the email right now so I don't forget.
Great, thanks.
I was thinking the same thing, Neve, if they are interested in being able to travel, and that would, be something that would help the program, or that the football program would be interested if they could also travel. I think that would maybe help with potentially, budgeting a cost like that into next year's budget.
Yeah, we'll continue to look at it.
I had a few questions to answer. Were you finished?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So I did review numbers. One of the questions was about selections. I think the last time I looked at it was about a week ago, maybe a little over that, and we were at about 77% of families choosing family life, and the remaining families choosing the extended health lessons. We are still working with families that have questions. I did attend a large majority of the back-to-school nights just to be available and to make sure that everyone had an opportunity that wanted to engage in conversation. The biggest conversations were about the fact that students are changing again for gym this year. So that's a big change after living through COVID and not being able to interact in that way in the locker rooms. We'll continue to be supportive. We will send out letters as a reminder as we prepare to begin those units at each grade level. Parents can still request changes in either direction by reaching out to the principal. And we will continue to monitor numbers and supports as needed as we work with the Health and PE Department. The other question related to the Words Matter project. Mr. Kircher and I have developed a transition plan, and I should say he really was instrumental in ensuring that all of the things he was working on with his departments were clearly identified so that I can be supportive in the transition of a new member joining the team. We are also looking, so that was discussed at that time. We will meet again next week to discuss some of those initiatives or those projects that were sort of in the works to determine the best way to move forward with them. I think one thing that we are really looking to do as we continue moving forward with regards to our Words Matter initiative and also our work with Diversity Council or our Culture and Climate Committee at the district level is to really align our work to the work that we're doing with St. Elizabeth. We engaged in a 3-year SCAPE plan with St. Elizabeth University. We are in year 1 right now, and so I just met with the consultants actually today, and there are a lot of great things that are planned, and there is a consultant that will be working at every building. So we're just making sure that we have organization to the processes that we engage in and that there's connection to the needs of each building. So we will continue to pursue those initiatives and projects that were already started and will continue to move forward.
I just have one more thing, not to harp on the marching band thing. Marching band does go to every single away game, and they play in the stands, and they do their pep music. It's just that they don't necessarily always perform their halftime show. So they might not have their big stands and their chairs and all of that, but they do go to every away game and perform. So I guess they just use busing for all of their instruments and things like that.
So they go with the football team when they go?
I mean, I
Or
don't
they
know how
have to
many
get their own
buses go to away
transportation?
football games, but cheerleaders, football players, and marching band do take buses to away games. So they do go and perform, just not their bigger halftime show.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry, I just didn't want it to be.
Yeah, good, thank you. Moving on to Section 22 for the good of the order. I want to kick this off unless anybody else has anything to add, but I also want to jump on what Dr. Beck had said earlier and congratulate and welcome Maddie and Chad. We're very excited to have you both here and part of this, and we really look forward to working with you guys. So thank you and congratulations to both of you for being voted in, so thank you.
I wanted to kind of echo what Craig was saying. I think this is a great start to the school year. It's a great tone to be setting this early in the year, and we're excited to have you guys and have the Student Advisory Board. I think it was needed, and I think, I can speak for almost all of us that we're really excited for this. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your dedication already to this board. And Chad, too. I don't think he's out there anymore. He left. And Chad.
I'll be the third Chaco. I just want to welcome you aboard, Madeline. Thank you so much for joining us at the table and for speaking at the table on your first night. And we look forward to welcoming Chad to join us. I also was very impressed with the students that came and spoke at the last meeting, and we're glad to see that move forward. And I also just had a really great experience with back to school nights. Really wonderful to see the energy of just the teachers feeling like they can get back to what they love, and everyone being able to be in the classroom and see each other's faces. It's really nice, and really looking forward to being able to just continue to see that and focus back on the normal fun things and student achievement. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to closed session. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, provides for the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas the Sparta Township Board of Education is of the opinion that such circumstances exist to discuss a personnel matter which is exempt from public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act, and a matter of attorney-client privilege. Thank you. Now therefore be resolved that the Sparta Township Board of Education shall enter executive session on September 22nd of 2022 at 8:16 PM. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the executive session. We expect to be probably about 30 minutes, and no action will be taken. Oh, motion. Yep, need a motion. Neve, thank you. Second?
Second.
Jen, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?